Actually, her attempting to do things that he would do himself at this point would probably cause her to explode, so maybe, yeah, no. Even though everyone looks pathetic compared to Cassius, Shera is an incredibly competent bracer. I'm sure she can handle all this. Yeah, looks like these two are about to be worked really hard. So, look out Erebonia, here comes Cassius. Cassius Bright Fact. Cassius is so powerful that Erebonia considers him setting foot on their shores a national emergency. That, by the way, is not an exaggeration, it is actually canon. I kinda like choosing this option because it's funny. You know, maybe one of those shirts that give you ridiculous evasion from Berehard? That'd be nice. Yeah, that's a little thing that people who played Cold Steel will get. Hey, these games cross-reference each other all the time. I'm allowed to do that too. And there goes the airship. But I can make it go faster by pressing the turbo button. I think we did pretty good work, the two of us, yesterday. We should be able to handle these jobs. Let's stop by the guild to find out just what those jobs are. So, for real this time, welcome back to The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky. Last time we completed our first job for the Bracer Guild, which was kind of a little bit impromptu, but we ended up rescuing those two kids, and by the way, the receptionist at the Roland port is a pervert. Anyway, let's head into town to the Bracer Guild to check out those new assignments. Oh, hi Luke. And he's playing Let's Be the Most Broken Character in the World. So talking to this lady here mentions the Calvard Republic, one of the other regions on the continent. Well, she's a complete jerk. But she mentioned a few things that might be hints of what's to come. Let's check out the board here. We have 2 optional side quests, and if we talk to the receptionist, she'll give us our main story quest for now. You might have heard Estelle mention the name of this farm in the previous part when she was talking to Luke. So, just the usual professional side quest of business. Go to a farm, stop some monsters from harassing farmers. So that'll show that we're on official business. But we're going to handle that later. For now, let's cover these 2 quests. Find the Shiny Rock and Milch Main Road Monster. So these side quests will expire after a while. This game doesn't do a particularly good job of explaining when side quests expire, though. It just says, like, short, medium, and long duration. Short can mean anything from expires after the next main story quest, or expires the moment you talk to the next plot-relevant NPC. Similarly, long sometimes means that the quest won't expire until the end of the chapter, but not always. Anyway, just a little bit of dialogue while I was explaining that. I was expecting to find Shera up there, but she's probably busy with work. So, I want to take care of Find the Shiny Rock first, because that one we can complete without even having to leave town. The quest giver for this one is right behind the Orbital Factory. This boy near the clock. This is probably one of the more mundane jobs that Bracers have to do, finding lost items. But he says that he was last around Rion's general store. Well, we are Bracers, so it's up to us to find that item for him. So firstly, you want to check the grate just in front of the general goods store. Sewer grate, huh? Yeah, I think we know where this is going to end up being. And the place that has the free heal point. So, let's head back down to the sewers. Right behind the chapel, and I've already been through the sewers a few times, so I might as well just cut to the end here, but I will fight the enemies here for a bit more Seepeth, because I might need that later. Just something to quickly point out, you'll notice the enemies here gave almost no experience. The Trail series has some very severe rubber band experience scaling, as I like to call it. Basically, if you are above the level that the game expects you to be at for an area, the enemies will give you practically 0 experience points. Meanwhile, if you are at all behind the level an area expects you to be at, enemies will give you absurd amounts of experience. So that way, you don't need to grind very much in this series. And so there's the shiny object. There's some moths in the way, though. And we actually leveled up out of our trip to the sewers. Something I wasn't quite expecting. 0 time Seepeth, though, which I'm pretty sure you can't find here anyway, but I'm gonna need more time Seepeth for later. Well, unless I need to use the heal point, which I don't need to because I just got healed from a level up. So we've retrieved the item, let's return it to the client. That's a pretty simple quest. You don't want to know where we found it. Wow, even children are questioning their employers. And we get a new food item, drilled meatballs. We'll get the recipe for those if we eat them. But they're kind of useful because they buff strength in addition to healing you. There's a lot of food that provides stat buffs in these games, and they tend to be very, very useful items. Well, we found him behind the Orbital Factory looking at a clock. He seems to be a bit of a technology enthusiast. Well, that's kind of funny since I'm going to be going over that in this episode, and, yeah, my brain goes numb thinking about them too. Find the Shining Rock has been completed. No bonus BP for that one. So, now is the perfect time to go over Orbments. Firstly, though, after you've completed your Bracer training, there's actually some new quartz available at the Orbital Factory here. We can now get Blind, Cast 1. These are going to be very, very good quartz later in the game, but right now they're not that great. EP Cut 1, which is also very useful later in the game, EP 1, and Hit 1. We can also get Impede 1. Something that I forgot to mention about arts is that attacks with the Impede property can cancel spell casting. So you'll need to be aware of that if enemies can use moves like that. The same goes for you too. If enemies are trying to cast arts and you have any Impede attacks, you can use them to knock them out of spell casting. The main things that I'm concerned about here are Blind and either EP Cut 1 or EP 1. Why? Well, let's explain how the Orbment system works and how it affects magic. So, as you can see here, Estelle only has one slot open on her Orbment. She's filled that with HP 1, which has a water elemental value of 1 water. This lets her use Tear and Aqua Bleed. Both of them have an elemental requirement of 1 water. Meanwhile, Joshua has access to Clock Up, Firebolt, and Soul Blur. These two require 1 time, this requires 1 fire. As you can see, Joshua currently has 1 fire and 1 time installed in his 2 slots, so that adds up to those spells. If I were to, for example, change this to Defense 1, I am now getting 1 time and 1 earth, so that gives me access to Stonehammer. I prefer offense on Joshua over defense. So it seems pretty simple now, but the process gets a bit complicated later on. If we take a look at the Bracer book here and go into Magic 1, here's a list of some of the spells we can cast and their elemental requirements. For example, if we had 8 Earth and 4 Space Quartz, we could use Titanic Roar, an Earth elemental spell that hits all enemies on the field. Similarly, if we had 8 Fire, 4 Earth, and 2 Space, we could use Volcanic Rave. So here's a list of some of the other spells, and more of them. In particular, Earth Wall is going to be incredibly good later on in the game. It only requires 4 Earth elements too. Here's also the list of healing. So there's one extra component to this whole quartz thing, and that's the concept of lines. The tutorial briefly discussed this, but not in a lot of detail. If I go to Modifier/Trade and go to Open Slots, we can see here that Estelle's central slot is already open. And you can see that the slots here are color-coded. Everything here that's in yellow/orange, whatever you want to call that, is her first line, and these two form the second line. The central slot counts as part of both. So, in order to have the elemental requirements for a spell, all those elements need to be on the same line. So for example, if a spell requires 8 Earth and 4 Space Seepeth, like Titanic Roar, all of those elements need to be part of the same line. This is why characters with longer lines are better magic users than characters with shorter lines. Joshua has 2 lines like Estelle, but one of them has 5 slots on it, while the other only has 2. This is counting the center for both of them. A 5-long line can make much stronger magic than a 2-long line. If all this is confusing you, I like to describe this with an analogy. If you know of the Pokemon trading card game, I consider elemental requirements to be like energy cards in that game. You attach energy cards to Pokemon, and depending on the number of energy cards you have attached, you have access to different attacks. Here it kind of follows the same principle. If you want to use White Gahana, you need 8 time, 4 space, and 2 Mirage energy. Think of it that way. Why am I showing this page in particular? Well, right now I'm going to be working towards 2 specific arts, Aerial and Hellgate. These are the 2 earliest AoE spells you generally have access to, and we'll be soon having access to a side quest that will give us easy access to Aerial. For Hellgate, we're going to need Blind, and then either EP1 or EP Cut 1. So, with all that explanation out of the way, let's take care of the second side quest we have, which requires us to travel to Milch Main Road. And, well, this place is more of a Hyrule field than a main road. It's pretty big. Our first decently sized area, though the enemies here generally aren't that strong. I can probably afford to skip a few of them since I leveled up in the sewers. Enemies exist on the world map and can be easily avoided if you want. Now this place does have 4 chests, so I'm going to go ahead and get them all. The first chest is right up here behind this tree. However, this chest is a little special. It's a monster chest. And oh boy, that's a lot of cats. So, it is technically possible to win this battle now. I prefer to put this one off until we have access to AoE attacks. Don't worry, you'll have plenty of access to Milch Main Road. This is not a one-time area. So yeah, monster chests are a staple of the Trails games. You'll generally get better items out of them than you will from regular chests. Oh, that guy just noticed us. And in later games, monster chests would have their own unique visual design. Not so much in Sky FC. Here, they just look like regular rare chests. Okay, here is a new enemy. This enemy you might have fought before if you explored the Malga Trail a little bit more thoroughly. This thing is a red Insectos, and it's the tougher enemy that I was talking about that can show up there. This thing hits pretty hard, and it has pretty solid defense and HP for such an early game enemy. So, I prefer to avoid them on your first trek through the Malga Trail. As you can see, yeah, they do quite a bit of damage. I'm not using Dual Strike with Joshua right now because I want to build up CP for something a little bit later on the road. And it's actually not the monster that we've come here to kill. There's actually not much else to see on the first area of Milch Main Road, so let's head out to Area 2. This place leads to Purzel Farm, but we're not going to go that way just yet, because there are a couple of treasure chests for us to find here. The first one's right here. So the only certainty regarding monster chests in this game is that wooden chests will never contain monsters. We get a tear bomb. The chest is empty. Aha! Got you! Oh, I didn't fall for that. There's no way in this game that a chest will give you a second item. Just a funny message. Uh-oh. Yeah, the red Insectoses like to notice you from quite far across the map. Also, they can sometimes show up in larger groups, and when that happens, they can be a bit of a pain. So, I like to, hi, red Insectos. Okay, only one of them. I think I'll try and kill this one just to get a little bit of CP up. I don't think that 10% heal turn will really affect much. Okay, yeah, Joshua's getting pretty close to going down. I don't want that, because that will mean that all that CP I spent this time building up will be worthless.
We're good to go.
While I'm here, I'm going to have Estelle heal Joshua. Aha! Yep, there's a chest hidden underneath this tree. The chest is empty. Shocked! And let's, again, ignore the farm. You want to make sure you rotate the camera a lot during these areas, because you might miss chests that way. Another tear bomb. The chest is empty. Surprised? I will say the chest messages get a lot funnier in the second game. There's a lot of amazing ones in that one. But that's everything we can do here, and in fact, counting the monster chest, we've actually seen every chest in this area. But the third screen of this place is where our monster that we're hunting is, but also there's something special on this screen. There it is! This is a Shining Palm, this game's Metal Slime equivalent. Like Metal Slimes, Shining Palms have enormous resistance to pretty much everything, and they have massive evasion and they can flee. But they give enormous experience and lots of Seepeth. If you want a Seepeth grind, Shining Palms are the best way to do it. Especially since Shining Palms always spawn in the same place during every chapter. So Shining Palms will always show up at this specific spot on Milch Main Road. So if you keep exiting and reloading the screen, you can find them. Also, they're pretty easy to get back attacks on if you know exactly where they are. Now, I doubt I'm going to actually kill any of them here, because they'll probably run. At this point in the game, the only really reliable way to kill a Shining Pom is via a 200 CP S-Craft or instant death magic. And we don't have access to instant death magic at this point. I can, you know, try and attack one. I actually hit, but as you can see, didn't make much of a dent. Okay, yeah, they can also sap your EP by hitting you. I mainly let Joshua get hit there to build up his CP a little bit. So, I will be killing that later because not only is it worth good CPith and experience, but there is an achievement for killing one Shining Pom in every chapter. Let's heal Joshua. Okay, so the monster is coming up pretty soon. It's around here, right? Yep, there it is. It's right there. Go away, Red Insectos. That weird pineapple / pinecone looking thing. So for this, you want to set your tactics to be standing far back. Also, you want fire elemental magic for this. So, let's go. You unfortunately can't get back attacks against road monsters. So the thing we have here is a pine plant. Resistant to water, doubly weak to fire, and it likes to use water arts against you. But it actually self-destructs when it's killed, so that's why I want to stay back a little bit. And in fact, I probably should have swapped over Estelle's Quartz. I'm kind of dumb for that, because she doesn't have access to much here. I suppose I can, I guess I can try Taunt. I don't find myself using Taunt that much in this game, because it's actually not 100% effective on enemies. They can sometimes resist it. Okay, yeah, preferring to use arts. And there is Unbleed, and that does quite a bit of damage. Okay, I don't want to use a spell here. I want to actually use a... I can do this and get the recipe out of the way. Also buffing her strength, but I don't really want to get too close. Hi there. Annoying plant. I was going to say I could try casting a preemptive tier, but that will go before the plant attacks her. Okay, I just had to use my option to freely run from these fights because I was dumb. Right, I'm going to go ahead and use a, chests hand out tier bombs like candy, so you don't need to worry about spamming them too much. You practically never need to buy them either. But anyway, for this, I'm going to set Estelle's Orbment to something that is not water. So in this case, I believe Airstrike will work. Okay, now let's fight this thing. Because, yeah, now Estelle can do 100% damage. And she's going to get a critical turn, too. Actually... Oh, yes, great. Joshua will get a crit turn with his spell here. Yes, magic can critical in this game. And it's very powerful when it does, obviously. Okay, she has an S-Craft, and she's going to be casting now. I need to heal Estelle right now. Or, I don't want to take the risk of this thing being fast enough to cast a spell immediately, which enemies sometimes do. Okay, turns out I was safe, but still. Some enemies are fast enough that they can immediately cast their arts, so you... Okay, now would be a good time to use an S-Craft or a physical attack, but I don't want to do that because I want to save it for the Shining Pom. So I think I'll actually be able to take this thing out now if I go for this. Firebolt does about 200 damage, and this should do enough damage to finish it off. There we go. And it explodes. So that's why I wanted to stand further back. Not a particularly tough monster there. We have taken a little bit of damage. We don't need to go there, I just want to show it. This is the Vert Bridge checkpoint. Funnily enough, the song that plays in these areas is called It's Not Easy to Guard the Border, which I find kind of funny. So I wanted to talk to this guy here. This guy is actually Luke's dad. You probably wouldn't know that if you didn't go out of your way to talk to him now. And he's going to explain a little bit of backstory about the war. that actually foreshadows a side quest we'll have slightly later. And that's all we can do there for now. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to go ahead and fight some enemies until I get 200 CP stored up on Estelle and Joshua to kill off the Shining Poms. Okay, Joshua's at 200. Yeah, I decided to grind CP on the sewer monsters since they're a lot less of a threat. You might notice the word auto-saving in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen there. That's something the Steam version just does on its own. They're saved to a separate location to the rest of your save slots though. They don't overwrite any manual saves, so don't worry. They can be useful in case your PC crashes or something. Anyway, Shining Pom should be around here somewhere. They don't always spawn. I find they usually spawn, just not always. Doesn't seem to be one here this time. There we go, there it is. And like I said, they are actually pretty easy to get preemptive strikes on. So, something that I should also mention about Shining Poms is, as you can see, the turn order bonuses are very different to normal battles, and they're a lot more extreme. These Seepeth Up bonuses in Shining Pom fights give a lot of extra Seepeth, and some people like to wait for those to grind large amounts of Seepeth quickly. In particular, Estelle's S-Craft actually gives a huge amount of Seepeth if she uses it on a Seepeth upturn. I think because it's technically a multi-hitting attack, even though it doesn't actually calculate damage that way. Like, its animation looks like it's doing multiple hits, and I think that's how that works in terms of Seepeth, but anyway. Okay, now I just have to make sure they don't run away before that critical turn. I kind of want to get that crit turn, because I'm not entirely sure if a double S-Craft at 200 CP will take them out. Okay, let's go for Joshua's first. Grabbing that crit turn, and let's target that first one. And let's immediately have Estelle's on standby. Yeah, it was not quite enough even with the critical turn, I thought so I need Estelle's here. Really, killing off one of them's enough. And let's skip it. That's what happens when you skip S-Crafts, by the way. Because even one Shining Pom is enough for 100 experience, which is enormous at this point in the game. As well as 20 of each Seepeth, which is also enormous at this point in the game. So, by grinding up CP and doing that repeatedly, because it's quite easy to refresh the spawns of Shining Poms, it's not hard to grind at this point, though you really don't need to. You might want to kill at least one Shining Pom at this point, because the extra Seepeth can be useful for opening up slots and getting more quartz. But we'll cover that a little later, because next... hi, Insectos. Because next time, we'll be heading to the farm to take care of what we were actually supposed to be doing on Milch Main Road. So, see you all then. Don't worry, I will be reporting the side quests later. I want to report them all at once when we're next back in Roland after finishing the story mission. Even though some quests might have deadlines, there is, as far as I know, no deadline for reporting quests, only actually completing them. As long as you've completed a quest, you're pretty much locked in for having that quest done. But anyway, enough about that. Let's end this, and next time it'll be time to go to the farm. Okay, so we're on 200 CP on both characters. Let's hunt some Shining Pom. One quick thing I want to say, you might have noticed the word auto-saving appearing in the bottom of the screen whenever I switch areas. That's something that the Steam version does, but don't worry, autosaves are saved to a separate area to the rest of your saves. They can be useful if your PC crashes or something like that. So anyway, the Shining Pom should be around here. Let's just walk slowly. It doesn't always spawn, but it usually does. And I think it may not have spawned this time. Oh.
Not now.
Autosaves are also useful if that happens.